I thought I knew poverty until I stepped off the plane in Mumbai and saw something that made me question everything I believe about economic development. After visiting 12 Asian countries in 3 months, nothing prepared me for what I discovered in India. But before we dive in, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. I subscribe. And I'll personally welcome you into the family. With that said, let's get started. 3 days earlier, I was in Singapore. Pristine streets, digital payments for street food, GDP per capita of $65,000. It felt like living in the future. Then I landed in Mumbai. GDP per capita, $2,400. The contrast hit like a physical force. Yet something incredible was happening that would completely change how I see the world. What I saw next shattered my understanding of what development actually means. India has 140 billionaires, but 270 million people living in extreme poverty. That's the entire population of Indonesia surviving on less than $2 a day. Your brain wants to process this as pure inequality, but there's something else happening here. A 2023 MIT study revealed India's middle class grew by 300% in 20 years, even with these poverty numbers. How is that mathematically possible? I found out when I met Rajesh, a rickshaw driver in Bangalore. This man owns 3 smartphones. One for ride bookings, one for delivery apps, one for his online business selling phone accessories. His daughter goes to private school. Sir, he told me, my father pulled rickshaws by hand. I'd pull them with an engine. My daughter will pull data with her mind. But that's when things got really weird. I discovered that while half the country lacks proper toilets, India processes 40% of the world's digital payments. Not Asia's payments, the entire planet's digital transactions. In a rural village 3 hours from any major city, I met Priya, a 45-year-old vegetable vendor. She can barely read, but she uses digital payments more than most Americans. Stanford Research Institute's 2024 data shows India's rural digital adoption increased by 2,847% since 2016. I watched a farmer with dirt under his fingernails execute bank transfers faster than I could find my credit card. His hands told stories of manual labor, but his thumbs moved like a concert pianist across that screen. This is where it gets disturbing. 22 of the world's 30 most polluted cities are in India. On my 3rd day in Delhi, I couldn't see the sun through smog. My throat burned constantly. Whose 2024 database shows Delhi's air pollution is 15 times higher than safe limits. I met Dr. Ananya Sharma, a lung specialist treating 8-year-olds for conditions usually seen in 60-year-old smokers. I have patients who've never left Delhi, she said, but their lungs look like they've worked in coal mines for decades. Economic growth at what cost? But here's where my brain broke completely. The same country burning the most coal is installing solar panels faster than any nation in history. India added 50 gigawatts of renewable capacity in 1 year. That's more than most countries consume total. I visited a solar farm in Rajasthan larger than Manhattan, employing 10,000 people. Former coal miners now install wind turbines, earning double their previous salaries. My grandfather mined coal, one technician told me. My father burned coal. I capture sunlight. My son will harvest energy we haven't invented yet. This contradiction is everywhere in India. I walked through Dharavi, one of the world's largest slums. Over 1 million people live in an area smaller than Central Park. You'd expect despair, but I found the opposite. Dharavi generates over $1 billion annually. It's basically a city-sized startup incubator. I met Arun, who started recycling plastic bottles in his 100-square-foot home. Now he employs 50 people and exports to Japan. Slum is just Western word, he told me. We call this opportunity density. Harvard Business Review's 2024 research shows India filed more patents than Germany, despite having 1/6 the per capita income. They're solving problems we don't know we have yet. But let me tell you about the moment everything clicked. I was in Bengaluru at 2 a.m., watching software engineers debug code for a Silicon Valley startup. These developers earn $15,000 annually, but solve problems worth millions to American companies. The same day, I met Kavya, a 24-year-old who built an app helping farmers predict crop yields using satellite data. She works from a shared office space that costs $50 monthly. Her app is used by 2 million farmers across Africa. Constraint breeds creativity, she said. Americans have every resource, but solve small problems. We have no resources but solve big problems. This is when I realized we've been measuring development wrong. I visited the Indian Space Research Organization. Their Mars mission cost $74 million. NASA's similar mission cost $671 million. Both worked perfectly. India put a spacecraft on Mars for less than the budget of a Hollywood movie. Their rocket scientists take the bus to work. They eat lunch from tiffin boxes their wives packed. They wear simple clothes and solve complex physics. Frugal innovation, the mission director explained. Maximum impact, minimum resources. This is Indian engineering. But the real shock came in healthcare. India performs heart surgeries for $2,000 that cost $100,000 in America. Same success rates. I visited Narayana Health, where they've industrialized cardiac surgery like Toyota industrialized cars. Dr. Shetty, the founder, showed me their assembly line approach. In America, surgeons do 2 heart operations weekly. Our surgeons do 6 daily. Practice makes perfect, and perfect saves lives. They've reduced heart surgery costs by 90% while improving outcomes. Medical tourists fly from America to India for treatment. Think about that for a second. I spent 3 weeks trying to understand this paradox. How can a country be simultaneously so poor and so innovative? The answer hit me in an unexpected place. I was at a cricket match in Mumbai. The stadium holds 33,000 people, but outside, 100,000 more watched on giant screens, creating a festival atmosphere bigger than the actual event. That's India in microcosm. The formal economy is small, but the energy around it is massive. Most innovation happens outside traditional systems. India has 65 million micro-entrepreneurs. Street vendors using AI apps to predict foot traffic. Taxi drivers who code mobile apps during breaks. Housewives running international businesses from kitchen tables. The World Bank's 2024 report calls this the informal innovation economy. It's unmeasurable by traditional metrics, but drives real change. I met Sunita, a housewife in Chennai, who started making pickles for neighbors. Now she exports to 15 countries, employs 200 women, and her revenue is $5 million annually. Her business exists entirely on WhatsApp and Instagram. Government doesn't help, banks don't help, but customers help, she said. Internet is our infrastructure. This is where India becomes dangerous to every economic model we understand. They're not following the traditional development path. They skipped landlines and went straight to smartphones. They skipped bank branches and went to digital payments. They're skipping traditional universities and learning from YouTube. McKinsey's 2024 study shows India will have 350 million internet users who never owned a computer. They experience the internet entirely through smartphones. This creates possibilities that shouldn't exist. I watched a village barber stream his work live, teaching cutting techniques to barbers worldwide. He earns more from online classes than haircuts. A Mumbai street artist sells digital versions of his physical murals as NFTs to collectors in New York. A Kolkata grandmother teaches Bengali cooking to Bangladeshi immigrants in London via Zoom. The barriers between local and global have completely disappeared. But here's what scares traditional economists. India is proving you don't need to be rich to innovate. You don't need perfect infrastructure to create value. You don't need government support to build businesses. This threatens every assumption about economic development. Western development theory says, first build institutions, then infrastructure, then education, finally innovation. India did backwards, and it's working. They innovated first, out of necessity. Innovation drove education demand. Education created pressure for better infrastructure. Better infrastructure is slowly improving institutions. The 2024 Global Innovation Index ranks India 40th overall, but second in innovation efficiency, getting maximum innovation output from minimum resource input. That's the real revelation. Development isn't about having everything. It's about making everything you have work better. I saw this at IIT Madras, India's MIT. Students built a $400 ventilator during COVID that performed like $40,000 machines. Not because they couldn't afford expensive parts, but because expensive parts weren't the solution. Jugaad, they call it. Frugal innovation. Making do with what you have and making it work brilliantly. Professor Sharma explained.
American engineering optimizes for performance. German engineering optimizes for precision. Indian engineering optimizes for accessibility. Different goals, different solutions. This philosophy is reshaping global technology. Indian companies don't just write code cheaply, they've reimagined how software gets built. Agile development, DevOps, continuous integration. These aren't Indian inventions, but Indians perfected them out of necessity. Now Silicon Valley copies Indian development practices.
The student became the teacher, but nobody wants to admit it. Here's the part that kept me awake at night. If India can innovate this effectively while poor, what happens when they get rich? China became the world's factory when it was poor. As China got richer, manufacturing moved to Vietnam and Bangladesh. That's normal economic evolution. But India isn't following this pattern. They're not just doing cheap work for rich countries. They're creating entirely new categories of solutions. UPI, India's payment system, is more advanced than anything in America or Europe. It's free, instant, and works on the simplest phones. Now other countries are copying it. India didn't catch up to the West in payments. They leapfrogged and left us behind. This is happening across sectors. Indian pharmaceutical companies produce 20% of global generic drugs. Not because labor is cheap, but because they've mastered complex chemistry at scale. Indian space technology costs 10x less than Western equivalents with similar performance. Not because corners are cut, but because engineering is more elegant. Indian renewable energy installations are breaking world records annually. Not because government mandated it, but because it makes economic sense. The pattern is clear. India isn't just joining the global economy. They're rewriting its rules. But there's a darker side nobody talks about. This rapid change is leaving people behind. I met Mohan, a 55-year-old factory worker whose skills became obsolete overnight when his textile factory automated. My son programs the machines that replaced me, he said. I'm proud and heartbroken simultaneously. The speed of change in India isn't just fast, it's violent. Entire industries disappear and recreate themselves within years. Traditional communities struggle to adapt. Rural farmers competing with precision agriculture. Artisans competing with 3D printing. Shopkeepers competing with e-commerce. Yet somehow, most adapt. India has an unemployment rate of 7%, lower than France or Spain. In a country changing this rapidly, that's miraculous. The secret is cultural. Indians have been dealing with uncertainty for millennia. Multiple languages, religions, climates, and cultures in one country created natural adaptability. Flexibility is survival, an economist in Delhi explained. Americans optimize for stability. Indians optimize for change. This cultural advantage might be India's greatest asset. As I prepared to leave, everything became clear. I wasn't witnessing poverty or wealth. I was witnessing transformation, the fastest, largest human development experiment in history. 1.4 billion people are simultaneously getting connected, educated, and economically empowered. Not gradually, like Europe or America did over centuries, but all at once within decades. The implications are staggering. If this works, India rewrites every rule about development. Poor countries won't need to follow the slow Western path. They can leapfrog directly to innovation-based economies. If it fails, the social and environmental costs could destabilize the entire region. But here's what I realized on my final day. Failure isn't an option India can afford. With 1.4 billion people and limited resources, they have to make this work. That desperation breeds innovation like nothing else can. Americans innovate because they can. Indians innovate because they must. That difference changes everything. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to know your answer. Is development about having perfect systems, or about people finding ways to thrive despite imperfect systems? Would you rather live somewhere with great infrastructure, but limited opportunity, or chaotic infrastructure, but unlimited possibility? Because after 3 weeks in India, I'm not sure the American model of development is actually better. It's different, but it's different better. Drop a comment with one word: systems or people. Because this question will define the next century of human progress. And India just showed us what choosing people over systems looks like. And honestly, it's both terrifying and inspiring in ways I'm still trying to understand.